Repping Clinic. This is also sponsored by Paddletek. They have probably the top group of players in the country playing for them right now. They and Selkirk are the two most popular brands out there, and both make very high quality paddles. Like I said, if you want to try demoing one of their main lines of paddles, we have them up here for you to demo today. So let's talk about repping. You know, nobody loves repping typically, although it can be fun. You can be in the best seat for a really good match. When you're repping, your goal should be not to impact the match in any way that would affect how it's going to outcome. So try to watch the player. So you may have someone that's going to be difficult to deal with at the beginning of the match. Don't expect them to say, hey, make sure to watch your mouth. You're not supposed to be careful with what you're doing. Or if you see somebody right there at the beginning, you have a hard time. Again, I sometimes try to go over and say, hey, watch what you're doing. I don't want to have to give you a technical fault, or I don't want to give you a warning. Treat them with respect. The refs should be out there, magnifying something and trying to get them to think further. I've only seen it happen 3 or 4 times in all the games I've ever been to, but you can diffuse those situations if you just, I think, handle it correctly. Even if you have to say, hey, we're going to take a pause for a second and go over there and just talk to that person quietly, there's nothing that says you can't do that as a ref. So, when we're repping, the main thing you're going to do is making sure the players are doing what they should. Try to have consistency as you call the score. Make sure you're doing things the same way every time. There have been a few rule changes this year. We're going to go over them here in a minute. But you want to not have players say, oh, I didn't know if you were calling the score now or if it was ready or whatever. I try to always have the same tone, the same rhythm, the same timing as I'm calling the scores. The big thing we watch for now this year, the ref doesn't call the score until the receiver is ready or should be ready. Meaning if I'm the receiver and I come over here and I come like this, I'm here, everybody has the ball, and then I'm not getting myself ready in that proper time. You need to call the score. And as you call the score, if I'm the server, as soon as that's called, I don't have to wait for that receiver to be ready. I'm serving as soon as I have 10 seconds for the server to serve it. So it's the ref's responsibility to make sure the receiver's ready. And if the receiver's taking a long time, that's when most things go and say, hey, we only have a certain amount of time. You're supposed to take 10 seconds or less to get yourself ready. I don't want to have to call the score without you being ready, so try to hurry up a little quicker. Here are some of the things that are a little different. When I call the score as a ref, 0-0-2, and over here, Kurt's getting ready to serve, and Jevin puts his paddle up after. That's an immediate fault. The receiver cannot become unready once the score is called. Now, if a point's over, I'm walking back with my paddle up like this. My shoe's untied, I quickly try to tie it, I have my back to it. Obviously the ref should wait for that. But if I'm the receiver here, he calls the score, I look down, no, that's a fault. And that's right as soon as that receiver puts his paddle up after the score has been called. Yes? Correct. No, they don't switch, they switch positions. It's a point. It's just like that point was won by the server's team. Yeah. Technically, if the server puts his hand up and says, I'm not ready. Now, this is the second part we're going to do. I call the score. 3, 1, 2. And Sean says, am I the correct server in the correct spot? All I can say is, you are the correct server. I cannot tell you if you're in the correct spot or not. Sean needs to look at his wrist. We're at 3. Do I have the server wristband on? No. So we're in the right spot. I cannot say, yes, you're the correct server, yes, you're the correct spot. You can only say the score is 3-1-2. You are the correct server. Now, if he goes ahead and serves it, he has the wristband on. Boom, as soon as he touches that ball, he'll say, I just asked you if I was the correct server. And I'll say, yes, you were the correct server, but you're at 3 and you need to be on the other side. You cannot tell them which side they can be on. You cannot say you're in the correct spot. It's the servers and the receivers. Same with the receiver. The receiver, all they can say is, what is the score? It's 4-1-2. Okay, so we're 1. I don't have the wristband. I should be here. The receiver cannot say, am I in the correct spot? You cannot say, yes, you are in the correct spot. So that's the major thing, is the receiver and the servers cannot say, am I in the correct spot. They can ask for the score, and the server can ask if I'm the correct server. Those are the two questions you can answer as a referee. So in the past, it's been, you can say, yes, you're the correct server in the correct spot. Does everybody understand the change to that this year? So it's a little less friendly, but at the same time, the consistency with it makes it so the one team says, well, you made sure John was in the right place, and when we asked you, you didn't really help us. So as a serving team, you should be able to figure out from your wristband and from what the score is. So the main priority, once the score is called, as the ref, the main priority I'm looking for is not in and out balls. It's foot faults on the service, and it's foot faults at the kitchen. Jevin and Larry and Jan, you'll come back out. Sean, I want you to try to ref here. So the score's already going, the point's already going. What Sean's head should be doing, I want everybody to watch this. If a ball is caught in the air, Jan, hit it back to me in the air. If they're catching the air, he should not be watching the ball, but he should be watching my feet. Now, once that ball has bounced, so hit one to me that bounces, he shouldn't be watching my feet, but rather whether that ball lands in or out. So if the ball is bounced, your head is free to look. If the ball has not bounced, make sure you're looking at those feet. Or we had a kitchen fault the other day with this, where the person hit their paddle and then caught the ball. That's a fault. Anything. If I hit the ball and my hat falls off that I caught in the air, that's a fault. Anything that comes off of me, that's a fault if it does that. So what happens a lot of times, Sean, I want you to follow the ball. Don't follow, you go everywhere with this, Tim. Don't follow the feet, but just follow the ball. Jevin, hit one wide to me, wider than that, really wide. Do it again. So this is what happens if Sean is watching the ball. Go to Larry first. We'll think a couple. Oh. All right, let's take. One more time. I'll go all the way to the line for me. So what happens if he's watching that ball quickly? He doesn't know if my foot. If you had been watching Jevin and just watching the ball back and forth, if Jevin hit a quick one, the fault that gets missed all the time is this. People say, oh, I'm out of the kitchen, how can you call a fault on me? You don't see this initial foot when someone jumps. So that's why, if that ball's in the air, if it had bounced, you now need to be ahead of the ball with your eyes, watching this person. And sometimes it comes, Jan, hit with me here real quick, hit it over here. It goes really, really fast, because if I had done this and I pushed it past Jan, one more time, Jan. I pushed it past her, and I've already come here, you may not see that my foot drug here because you're watching that ball there, because you're watching for the in and out. Don't watch for that in and out. It's their call. This is a horrible call for a referee on this line. You can't see if this is a cover no touch because of the way that ball sits. Watch the foot of that player. Like if you know that player has a consistency, if they've jumped the kitchen already a couple times, know that tendency and be watching, because there's so many times you're like, oh, I couldn't tell. Was this foot on the front of that line or he came around the edge of it? Watch that. If you know people are going to jump that corner, really watch that first push-off foot. That's what gets most. The second most common one, the second most common one is this. Oh, beautiful off. So what happens is I plant off here, I come back, hit that before this foot comes. People do, because they're here, they're thinking, oh, it's a lob. Boom. That plant foot, so they're all the way back here, and you call the kitchen call on them. But that plant foot has to come back down. People get upset on that call, but that's a kitchen fault. So make sure on a lob, you're not watching that ball, you're watching this player's push-off foot, what they do with it as they're going for that lob.
You get another step and you're okay.
Sure, if I do. Well, I'm sorry. What I usually do when it happens, if I see it go up, I try to drag my foot so I get that touch beforehand. But that foot has to come down. It's not just this foot. This foot has to come down. Lost my place where we were.
Kyle, same
Yes.
thing on the kitchen. If they come out and both feet, if that foot hits the ground before they hit it, then they've established themselves.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's all about getting that foot that touched the kitchen
touched the kitchen needs to
down.
hit. Okay.
Yes. So again, if this foot didn't touch, so I do this, that foot doesn't have to touch again. You know, if I came around and I went, but you don't have to worry about the foot that didn't touch. The
Just
foot that
one.
had touched, you have to get that
Has to be
established.
touched.
Yeah. On timeouts, when we call a timeout again, we want to all be consistent. So they've scored a bunch of points. I say timeout. Now again, you can't call, if let's say you've called the score 4-2-1. Jan starts her serve. Timeout, timeout, timeout. As soon as she started her motion, you cannot grant a timeout. That's a fault. That team gets a point. But if you said 4-2-1, Jan's still, she's saying to Jevin, hey, let's go middle. I can say timeout. As soon as you said 4-2-1, timeout. That's fine, as long as she hasn't started her motion. So when we call a timeout, you say, players, please put your paddles down in the correct positions. The score is 4-2-1. Jan, you're serving. Kyle, that's your first timeout of the day. You have one more left. You have 1 minute. Then you go through that. You have your stopwatch at 15 seconds. So you have 15 seconds. When those 15 seconds are up, you'll say, all right, time in. The score is 4-2-1. You shouldn't say, Jan, you're serving to Larry. You don't say these things. The score is 4-2-1. Now, at that 10 seconds, if we're not on the court, you're counting the 10 seconds. If we're not there, if the receivers aren't ready, Jan has to hit that ball in those 10 seconds. If she just says, well, they're not here, technically the fault would be on Jan if she didn't hit it during those 10 seconds, so she has to hit it to an empty court. But during those, once he's called the score, the server has every right to serve at any point they want, even if the receiver isn't there or isn't ready. But so the key, the big difference, it used to be the server needed to check and make sure the receiver is ready. It's now the referee says, okay, the receiver is ready or should be ready. That's what you need to make sure on. That's how we need to all be consistent with that.
Kyle?
Yes.
Is it incorrect for a referee to say before he calls the score, ready? Is that wrong?
No, I think you can, especially if it's less than that 1 minute. If they come back in, they all have their drink and there's still 30 seconds left. Jan and Jevin, are you ready? Kyle and Larry, are you ready? All right, guys, time back in. Here we go.
But you wouldn't do it on every point. Like just say ready?
No.
And then call the score? Okay.
No. The only thing you're watching, you're not watching anybody. You're watching one person. As the server is the receiver. As soon as that receiver is ready, or in your mind should have been ready, they're purposely stalling, you call the score. You don't look at anybody else on the court. The only thing the referee worries about between points is marking everything correctly and then going over where the receiver is when they're ready to go. All right, and then, so if the ball does bounce, obviously you do want to watch lines. There's times you should be watching line. If Jevin and I have dinked 3 or 4 times and it's hit the ground every time, and then he pushes one deep, you can't say, well, I was watching feet. Well, the ball bounced in the kitchen. As soon as that ball bounces, it gives your eyes the freedom to follow the ball, and you should be watching those line calls if you can. If it's a lob, you've had time to make sure everything's clear at the kitchen, and you should be able to see that land. You're not going to see every ball, and again, these aren't those things of, well, I think 60% chance it was in, 40% chance it was out. You go with the player's call unless it's obvious. You see it, and you saw green between the ball, you do, but there was another study done by a bunch of certified refs, and they put, I think it was 100 balls. They had 100 balls go, and then they had a camera with it, and they had people make calls, and I don't know if it was just like 20 balls, and they had 5 people, so it made 100 calls, but they were only correct about 75% of the time, saying, yes, I think it was in, or I think it was out. So judgment calls, if you're not sure, you don't overrule something. You just say, guys, I'm not 100% sure, I can't change that call. It was too close. However you want to say it, say, I didn't have a definitive look. Whatever you want to say, but you can't change it unless you say, yeah, I saw green on that. The one that drives me the most nuts is a ball that lands right here, and that ref calls this ball, or it lands, especially when it lands right here, and the ref says, oh, I see that in, because they didn't see any green, because you can't see any green because the ball is covering that up. Be very careful to make a call on the line that you're on right here. Obviously, if you're here and you're looking down the line, you might have a better look than these calls right here at the kitchen. That's a tough one to make. I think it's actually easier for that ref to make that call over there because you can see if there's green underneath the ball than right on top of you. So be careful not to get that call wrong. Let's go over the score sheet and the bracketing, because there's a few things I think we can all do together here that will make a lot of sense. I have 10 score sheets over here. Grab a pencil and grab a partner, and we're going to do this together. Leslie will hand them out.
Kyle, what about the serve motion?
Yeah, let's talk about the serve motion while we're handing these out.
So I actually had a lady get called on it, but she was like this, and then she put her paddle up like this, that made that motion while he was calling the serve, but it wasn't a serve motion. She was just, and he called the fault on her because she made a motion with her paddle. So we stood like this. We didn't move, we didn't do anything.
No, a service motion is the motion when you contact the ball.
Okay,
I mean, you can call the score and then I'm going to get ready. I mean, Larry Moon does this, and so you call a fault on him every time before he gets ready. So a service motion isn't your first motion. You can't say, oh, they called the score.
Yeah.
The service motion is, okay, you ready, Jan? Here we go. And then I'm going to go. Yeah, I would never call a fault on that.
You have to wait till the serve is completely called before you do that.
Now, that is the other rule change. If I call the score and Jeff's getting ready to serve, or I say 0-0-2, this is service motion.
Okay.
Okay? So now, if she's coming here, if her service motion, I guess, if she goes like this every time, if I'm Larry Moon and I'm doing this as he's calling a score, that is part of my service motion. If I'm striking the ball with that motion, but if, again, like a pitcher, you pause here, you call the score, 0-0-2, that would not be. But if 0-0-2, that would be.
Okay.
So again, that's going to be at your discretion. You can't have that one fluid motion be a part of that and not be that would be a fault. So you cannot, saying that more clearly, you cannot start your service motion until the score is completely called. If Jenny says 0-0-2, that's a fault. 0-0-2, that's not a fault. You have to, even the backward motion, it's not the forward motion and it's not striking the ball, it's any motion of your serve.
On that, so if you stop your motion because you caught what you did, and then you go, or is it just because you started it, it's a fault?
It'll be if you start it.
So if you called it and I was going like this and then I stopped,
they'd call you. Yeah, I believe that they would. I think if Byron Fresso was reffing that, he'd call it. Now, would you be able to get away with it with some refs? Sure. You could say, wait, I was just thinking. You might be able to get away with it. They might not catch you because you didn't strike the ball, but I do think you would get called because that is a service motion. You're in that position, and then you start. So he's not going to wait for you to strike the ball. He's going to see that initial motion. And so again, if that's that lady's serve every time she comes here and goes like this, I could see that being called because she does that consistently. But if she was just bringing the ball up while he's calling a score, I wouldn't. I would have to see the situation. Okay, if you can get around someone that has a score sheet, we're going to go over how this works. Guys, if you want to come here with this. What we do with these score sheets, you want to have it so the clip is to the side of the team that currently is serving. So let's say Chelsea and Katie, I just put C and K, are on that side. I can know I have the clipboard on the side that's going to be scoring, and then on this side is Jan and Jevin. So now see how this clip is this way? So as I flip it back and forth, the side that is scoring has the clip by them. So as you're setting up the paper at the beginning of the match, you say, okay, Jan and Jevin, you pick this side. All right, you're on this side, and Chelsea and Katie, you're on this side. Always mark the first server, so you'll put a little line with it. I'll say Chelsea's their first server. And if you don't know the players, and Jan is the first server, she's wearing blue, first blue. So I know who is who. It's whatever you might need to have that. So that shows every time. I know they can say, hey, we were the ones serving. Jan will say, we just won that rally. We got the point. And I'll say, no, I have the clip this way. It shows that they were serving. The score was 0-0-2, whatever it may be. And so the only time that becomes an issue is on a third game because you switch sides. So if game 3 was going on, Chelsea and Katie got to 6 as they're taking their 1 minute. So now Chelsea and Katie got to 6 there. And now I say, so if we just kept it there and it's 6-1-2. Well, what I had to do, because they've now switched sides of the game of 6, now the clip is that way. So game 1 and game 2, you can have it set up the whole time. But in game 3 at the 6, you have to remember to switch that score sheet to know that you have the clip facing towards the people that are scoring. Does anybody have any questions on that? That's really helpful for me as I'm reffing. Now we're going to have paper clips. Did anyone bring theirs today? I had a whole bunch inside and I forgot to bring mine. The clothespins. Yeah, not paper clips. Good call. The clothespins. On the clothespins, they're going to have slashes on them, forward or backward. And what those slashes do, it helps you tell who scored, whether it was the first server or the second server. Thank you, Gordy. That's perfect. So on this, Gordy, I'm going to put a little line on yours. So now, if it's on first server, so I know Chelsea is their first server, but we're going to start the match. So it's 0-0-2, and if they score, while they're scoring, my line goes the direction of the slash. So they got to 3. Once they're done, I put a mark right there. Now, they go through, Jan and Jevin don't score, we come back in. They're now at 3-0, so Katie is serving because they're at 3. So they're on first server, they've scored points, now my slashes are this way. So if Jevin comes and says, hey, I think they came in at an odd number, I mean, I think they came in at an even number, I can say no, they came in right here at 3. They came in here at 3, and then Katie started scoring, and they've scored 3 points since then. And now let's say they stopped Katie, so I'm putting the clip by the person's name that's serving. So Chelsea's now serving at 2, they score another point, and then they have side out there. So it's now 7-0. Now we have Jan scoring. She's at 1, so this would be Jan. That's why I have the clip on this side. And they score 7 points in a row. They call a timeout here. So I'm going to call, what I do for timeouts, so the timeout was by Chelsea and Katie. I don't think Jevin and Jan would after scoring 7 in a row. So we're going to call a timeout, and I'm going to put the score on the timeout as 7-7-1. So then when they say, when they come back in, Jevin picks up the ball and serves, fault. No, we were at 2. Well, no, I had 7 points in a row. The timeout was at 7-7-1. So now it's server 2. So now they're all flustered. They give the ball to Jan, and Jan serves. Fault, because it was supposed to be Jevin, because it was supposed to be Jan before. So now it's side out, 7-7. We come back over. I know it's Katie because, you know, she's the odd number. They're at 7-7. They score. Again, making those slashes the correct directions. They go to Chelsea. She scores the final point, and we can tell who scored when. Well, they came in at the beginning of the match. They scored 3 points. That was Chelsea scoring. They then had a side out. They got it back. Katie was the server. They scored 3 points on Katie's serve and 1 on Chelsea's, and then they had the side out. They scored 3 more points on Chelsea's, on Katie's serve, because that's who came in at 7, and scored the final point on Chelsea's. This way you can go back and see an entire game, who scored when, by telling, you know, they were odd, so they scored on the 1. So it must have been Katie that scored because she was the 1 server on this side, and then Chelsea scored 1. These slashes help you understand. If someone ever is saying, I don't think the score is right, you can go back and explain that to them. The video should show that I posted. The Palm Creek one, I think, has that on there. But those slashes make a difference. When we practice here in just a minute, I want everyone to practice with those slashes on the score sheet. And then the timeouts, if there ever is one, like I said, after you've marked, you can say, well, the timeout was while Jevin and Jan were scoring, because my numbers are this way, so that means Jevin and Jan were serving. If they would have called a timeout while they were serving, the score would have been this direction, 10-7-1. Maybe Chelsea drank too much water and she had to run to the bathroom real quick. Who knows? You know how that is, Chelsea. So I can tell that Chelsea and Katie called this timeout because the numbers are facing this direction. When this time it was Jan and Jevin scoring because the numbers are facing this direction. So those are little things that will help you organize your match. And we can, as I'm going around helping you guys do this, we can go over all those little ins and outs of it. But the biggest thing I want us all to learn is this slashing with the scoring. That really helps. And then using the clip, I used to try to ref everything because I felt like I could do it. And you know, you do, but you have chances of mistakes. But using the clip on the 1s and 2s, so you always have it on the person's name, because then I can look down with our server 2, and this says it should be Chelsea. Katie has the ball. After that long rally, they forgot. She serves at fault. Or halfway through the point, and Jevin raises his hand and says, I think that Katie was supposed to serve that. Or I think Chelsea was supposed to serve it, and Katie did. And you'll look down and you're like, yeah, I have Chelsea as the server. Katie, you did serve that. That's a fault. So anyway, again, you can correct a mistake on the serve, on anything that went wrong, and tell that next ball is served. Now, if he caught it after that next ball is served, you can say, hey, she's the wrong person. It's a fault for that next one to serve, but you can't take the point back previous to that. All right? Any other questions on the semantics on how to do these scores? I'm excited. I think this will help us as a core group be better with our score sheets, understanding that, and have more confidence when we're out there. So let's go out there and just get on courts, and I'll walk around, play 3 or 4 points, and have one person ref, have that person switch in and play 3 or 4 points. It's like a 5-man game, but you're reffing. All right. Anyway, Any other questions before we go out and grab on a few courts here? All right, let's go out and ref.
I'm going to steal my clip.
Yes, take